Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be just creating some random ephemera. I have this box that sits on my desk that just kind of gathers all of the little bits and pieces of things from different projects, and then they get to where they're overflowing, and then those get dumped into another bin, and my scraps and just things are literally overflowing, and I need to start doing something with them. So I am starting off today. I'm just going to be creating random ephemera with whatever is in this box and whatever else I can find to kind of complete these. I have no theme in mind. These are not necessarily for any specific journal or anything. And this page that you see here that says August on it, this is actually from an old Felicity Jane paper pack, and on the back side of it is lined, and so this will make a really good like tag or journaling spot. And so I just want to cover up this part that says August, and then I had this printable just floating around on my desk, and so I'm just gonna start doing this. I'm gonna glue this down. I'm using a Yoo-hoo glue stick for this part, and then I'm gonna glue this down to the printable and then trim it out and just see what I can make with this. I really want to get some of these scraps of mine under control, so I'm just going to trim this down just a little bit and then hopefully not make too many more scraps for myself as I go along. This was a little bit tall, and so I decided I wanted to just trim down this very top part of it. It also had like a little recipe section that I wasn't crazy about. So this part right here, I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off before I do all of my inking with everything. I'm going to use archival ink and ground espresso. I'm going to go around the whole thing. I'm actually going to make this into a tag shape. And I feel like this would be a really good just tall skinny tag in a large journal. You could even just use it as like a flip out, just depending on how you wanted to do it. But because it's lined on the back, it's really good for the journaling space. But then there was this one little section on the back that I don't know, I got some glue or something on. And so I decided to just go ahead and add some more of that printable paper to the back side to kind of cover up where that glue was. And in the end, I think I really like how this looked having both sides. It still has plenty of journaling space because it's got the lines, and I just think that it works better this way. So again, just using my Yoo-hoo glue stick over there, making sure to get really good coverage. Anytime I'm trying to collage a piece down, depending on the weight of it, I usually will use my Yoo-hoo glue stick. And so again, just going to go around and finish inking everything up whenever I trim everything down. And then I need to find something to put at the top. I have this fabric that's just, again, still just floating around. These were little bits and pieces. So I'm going to tear off a section and put that on the top of my tag here. And you could certainly punch a hole to do that. I actually ripped that fabric in half. I just wanted a little bit of a more narrow piece. But again, you could certainly, do a hole punch and that whole thing, but I really like the textural element of having a staple in there, so I just stapled that to the top. I did need to trim down my fabric just a little bit, but in the end, I really like how that looked. And then I really wanted a focal image for the front, so I went to some of my labels and things. This is actually printable from the Junk Journal Studio. I cannot remember which kit. I feel like it was a botanical kit, but I can't remember if it was the red add-on. I feel like that's right, but that could be wrong. But anyway, it just has been in my stash. So I pulled out this big label, and I really like how this kind of took up some of the space in the front, but left some of that beautiful collage paper in the background. And so I will also add just a little bit of green up to the top with another label, again, from the Junk Journal Studio. And I just wanted to add a little bit of color up there at the top, so it wasn't just all kind of sitting down at the bottom. And then I'm going to move on. This little pocket, again, this was made from a book page. It was sitting in my little basket there, so I'm going to make something with that. And I also have this tall skinny piece you can see in my left hand. I actually think that's going to make a really good belly band, so I'm going to set that off to the side. And then I found another one of these pieces of paper. These were actually cut-offs from another project that I kept, and these were like Tim Holtz papers, so I wasn't going to get rid of them. And I really love how this pocket turned out. So I had this other strip of fabric in my stash that I had just come across, and it's kind of hard to tell on camera because that paper actually has some of those corally pinks in the background with that green. And I really just love how this came together. It's not normally a color palette maybe that I would just automatically go to, but I really loved that background paper, and I just kind of put it on my pocket so that you could still see that there was book text behind there, but obviously the text is upside down. That's so that you're not going to bother trying to read it. It just kind of reads as texture. I added a label in the top right hand corner. That's again from the Junk Journal Studio. And then here I'm going to use this fabric. Thought about sewing it or creating a ruffle, but there was really only one section of this fabric that I wanted that kind of had those same colors in it. So I'm going to make some like faux ruffling. I'm just going to use my art glitter glue here. I just scribbled a little line across there, and then I'm just gonna kind of pinch and gather just a little bit. It's not a true gather, but it just gives it a little bit more texture instead of just like gluing it flat down, and then adding just a little bit more glue. It's the great thing about this glue is it dries really quick, so when you're doing something like this, it's kind of faux ruffles. And then I'm just going to go ahead and glue this floral image down. This is a Tim Holtz piece here, and it's obviously too tall for my pocket, which is totally fine. I will just trim off the bottom, and then of course I will go around and ink the pocket and everything. I did not trim down the fabric because I kind of like it hanging off on the ends. I may, when I go to put it in a journal or something, I may trim it down, but I'm not for sure. I kind of like it hanging off. And then this is that piece where I just felt like it would make a really good belly band. It's just a good size for it, but I wanted just something up at the top. I just added a little label because I think this is going to be perfect for a journal. It has that beautiful floral image. It really just doesn't need anything else on there. And so this little tag also, again, was in my stash. It's probably something I had started a while back, and it's just been floating around waiting for me to finish. And it's got encyclopedia paper on one side, you can see here, and then it had that lined paper on the other side. And this was actually made from a piece of packaging, so you could actually still see the label up at the top of that lined section. So I just took some of the printable and covered that section up so you couldn't see that, and then I brought that same printable around to the front. And then I had this beautiful butterfly, and I decided to use it, so I'm sort of placing this strategically so that it's covering up the red writing on this printable in the background. And then this little piece was a cut off from another project from a card I had just recently created, and the colors work really well. I know on camera it doesn't look like they're the same, but in person they do seem they're more similar. So I wanted to just have a little foundation for this butterfly stamp to kind of rest on, or faux stamp. And so I went ahead and just glued that down. It was on some mixed media paper, so I had to kind of use my scissors to give it that rough edge look to it. And then I glued, and I honestly can't even remember where this butterfly printable came from. I really have no idea. But it worked. It was floating around, and so I wanted to use it. It's beautiful. And then I'm using that other piece from that fabric up here at the top, and I actually have another little strip of fabric. This is like the very edge of a fabric, so it's kind of like the raw seam, and I really like how that looked together. And then I felt like it just needed a little bit more of that color on the page, so I'm going to put this up in the top left hand corner, and I'm actually going to wrap this around to the back. And this actually pulled everything together for me because I have that printable on the back side as well. So it just felt like more purposeful having a little bit of color wrap around as well. I did forget to add a little bit of distressing there. So in the end, I really like how that one turned out as well. And then this little project life card that you can see in the background was another one that had just already started at some point. It was a project life card. I added some pattern paper over the top of it at some point. And I really just wanted to finish it off. And I had this little dog. This is a Tim Holtz piece as well. I have no idea where it came from or why I would have pulled it out. But this little doggo is going to live on this project life card just because I thought he was cute and he needed a home. And so I have some other Tim Holtz paper there in the background that I'm just going to run across horizontally just to give my little dog a little like landing place here. And I honestly don't know why I would have pulled out this dog. It's not the first image that I would just normally gravitate to. So, but he's so cute. So I just decided to add him on here for no rhyme or reason other than I just thought he was cute. And sometimes I just want to sit down and make ephemera and create things, and creating like pockets and tags and different things is just a way I can kind of let my mind wander, and while I'm focusing it just kind of helps my mental state sometimes. So especially when life feels a little overwhelming, I can just sit down and create, and it helps me. So I added a little Tim Holtz word sticker here that says treasure, and I added just a little bit of ink to kind of, because it was pretty bright white. And then that's it for that one. And this is something that has also been floating around in my stash for a while, and it looks like kind of a check. And there's so much to this one that I really loved. There was just a lot of beautiful writing and some like stamps and different things, and so I wanted to keep this one very simple. So I just pulled in another Tim Holtz piece. You can see I'm fiddling around with, should I add some vintage paper? Should I add some other Tim Holtz paper in here? But in the end, I decided I want to keep it simple, and so that's what I'm going to do. I just added this floral image kind of over the bottom left-hand corner, which was really hard because it was covering up one of the sections of this that I really loved. And then I wanted to bring just another little pop of blue into this tag. There is some stamping in the background that's this same kind of bluish purpley color, and so I was really just trying to repeat that color in a few different places. So I used one of Tim's faux stamps there, and that will be it for that one. And then this is going to be another belly band. I'm obsessed with this piece of paper for some reason. I loved the numbers across the bottom. I love the gears. And so I had this vintage paper that is from, it's like an algorithm, I can't remember, star chart or something, but it's just got all of these numerical computations on it. So it's just a chart of numbers. And I really liked this with the numbers kind of across the bottom. And I'm just going to keep it really simple. This is another Tim Holtz piece down here. All of these pieces I guess I had pulled out of my stash at some point, and they've just been floating around in little pockets or, in my stash. And so that was just a good way to use that. And if I want to go back and add a label to that or something, I can, as I get it into a journal or whatever. And then this is a index card. Well, it looks like an index card. It's actually a printable. It's got coffee dyed paper on the back. And I messed around with this one for quite some time. And then finally, I just got to the point where I was like, I just need to start gluing things down. Sometimes I start overthinking, and I really have to, I'll be here all day if I do that. And so I just started gluing things down. So I glued down, this is some antique French paper that I glued down, and it has a beautiful texture to it. And then I added a little printable over the top of that, and then a Tim Holtz floral over the top of that, and just inked up the edges again, just keeping this pretty simple. This will be a journaling card, so I rounded all of the corners, and then if I want to add a label or a word or something down the road, I can do that, but I'll save that. And then this tag, another little tag that's was just waiting to be finished. It had some collaged vintage paper on there, and so I'm just gonna glue this little Tim Holtz piece. I really like the bright yellow of this floral with the craft in the background, and just trying to kind of soften those edges between the two different papers. And then the little part that's sticking off the edge, because this is a kind of tiny tag, I went ahead and just trimmed that off, and then I re-adhered it over on the top left-hand side, just to bring a little bit more color into this tag. And then I added another Tim Holtz sticker. I believe this one says beautiful. And then I had a little piece of yellow fabric, and this was actually not even a strip. I just kind of cut it down, and then it wasn't long enough to go through the hole and tie, so I just put it through the hole of the tag and stapled it. And then as I was going through all of my box there, I found this other Project Life card that had the same, like the perfect colors for this piece that was sitting here. This was actually from a printable set, again, probably from the Junk Journal Studio, and it was just, the colors were just perfect. And so I was like, that just made that very easy, and I went ahead and glued that down, added a Tim Holtz butterfly, and that will be it for this one. I am going to round the corners and ink everything up. It does have some imaging on the back that I will need to cover up, but other than that, that one's pretty much done too. So if you liked this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd love to have you join my Facebook group and check out my website. All that information will be in the description. And until next time, bye.